Welcome to Advocacy and Politics Unplugged, the show that will dissect critical policy issues, explore the art of advocacy and politics, and share insights on how to make your voice heard in today's ever-changing political landscape. I'm your host, John Ravitz, the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Business Council of Westchester. Welcome to the new episode of Advocacy and Politics Unplugged. We're very grateful that our new sponsor for this podcast is Con Edison. Our guests today, we have three guests today, and they are leaders in one of the most important initiatives that the BCW is undertaking, and that is how are we going to manage and move forward with the changing energy landscape. So our guests this afternoon are Ron Kamen, who's the founder and principal of EarthKind Energy Consulting, and he's also the director of the new BCW's Clean Energy Action Coalition, and we'll talk more about that. Dan Singer of Robison, the Hudson Valley's leading home comfort and energy service consultant, and Michael Murphy, head of business development for Murphy Brothers Construction. And Michael is also the president of the Mamaroneck Chamber of Commerce and the Building Realty Institute Board of Directors. Thank you all for joining us. As we have talked about in podcasts that we have done regarding the issue of energy, this has such an important impact on economic development for Westchester County and for the region and for the state. For many years, the BCW has been on the front lines trying to urge the state to have honest conversations about how we get to having a carbon-free emission. Those are questions we will continue to answer, but we've decided to take a new tact as well, and a proactive tact, and that was the creation of the Clean Energy Action Coalition. And our three guests today really came to the BCW and said, how do we be able to use the resources that we have at the BCW, the members that we already have who are on the front lines of helping to build this new renewable infrastructure, and give them a seat at the table. And that was the creation of the Clean Energy Action Coalition. So Ron Kamen, we're very fortunate that you have taken on the responsibility as being the director. It is amazing to me in the last 3 or 4 months, the work that this coalition has already done, the formation of different working groups that are actually working to try to begin to build an agenda for the future, as well as helping us as we look forward to the BCW's Clean Energy Action Conference, which will be held on Monday, March 21st at the Crotonville Conference Center in Ossining, New York. So, Ron, I'm going to kick it over to you. Give us a little update on the Clean Energy Action Coalition, some of the goals that we're talking about, and then we'll have certainly Dan and Mike chime in as well.
Great. Well, thanks so much, John, and thanks to the BCW for its leadership on this. I think looking at the hundreds of organizations that I've dealt with over the years, the Business Council is by far the most interactive, aggressive, supportive of its members, and promoting a vision of a positive future, which is really what we're all looking for. So thank you for the opportunity. The Clean Energy Action Coalition came together because folks recognize that we need a forward-thinking approach to exponentially expanding the amount of clean energy in our systems, and that's everything from our electricity system through our heating and cooling, thermal systems, and then our transportation systems. And in looking at all those pieces, we went through a process of identifying different technologies that are out there, what the current state of technological evolution is, cost effectiveness is. We started looking at all the incentives that are out there and the financing pieces. And really it was Dan and Michael who came together and said, we really need BCW to take the leadership on this, to bring together all the clean energy industry, which is solar, geothermal, air source heat pumps, transportation, electric vehicles, charging stations, and then also bridge that gap to developers, to communities, to families who want to make a transition but aren't quite sure how. One of the things that we've seen, and John, you've been so successful at pointing out, is that, we can't continue to go forward where developers and folks wanting to do projects spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars, and at the end of the day, after a long extended period, those projects are stopped. We need to get ahead of this. We need to plan how we're going to do this, and our goal is to exponentially expand those resources throughout the county. And to just give you one statistic. We took off 2,000 megawatts worth of Indian Point nuclear power plant. We need to make that up somehow. We're on the way towards helping to make that up with solar, but there's only 200 megawatts of solar so far. We need a tenfold increase just to make up that capacity from Indian Point. It's doable, it's possible, but we have to get ahead of it, and we have to make sure that we have all the pieces coming together. And that's what the Clean Energy Action Council is all about.
And it really is going to be going into communities and giving them the most updated information about the technology, try to diminish some of the misinformation that's out there. And Dan, you've been on the front lines. You know about the emerging technologies. What are some of the things that you think are going to be important for this new coalition to really go out there and, as I said, educate folks about things that are affordable and also safe?
Yeah, thanks, John. What's most exciting about the work, and I had no preconceived notion of what we would find, is we've discovered that there's a lot of work and research being done, but so much of it was being done in silos of people within their individual space. And what this coalition has been able to do is bring together, different businesses, different channels, whether or not it's solar, whether or not it's geothermal, whether or not it's clean and renewable fuels, things to get people coordinating together with government agencies and advocacies and utilities to start communicating with one another about the solutions. Some of the stuff that we're most excited about, in addition to the geothermal technologies and the other type of heat pumps, because again, our business's focus is primarily on home heating and cooling, but also the integration of renewable diesel and biofuels and how that could function either as a long-term solution or at a minimum a bridge until some of the solutions come online. And if I may, just kind of following up on some of what we've already been what you've already addressed, doing this under the auspices of the Business Council was such a breath of fresh air. I think there were so many people, so many more people than we had expected, gravitated to this, because at the end of the day, we're not going to get to where we need to get to unless the general business community in the area is aware and is ready to adapt and ready to get on board. And what better place to do it than through under the auspices of the Business Council?
And we appreciate that. I just want to go back to one of the things, and again, I know we could get really into the weeds on this, but as we talk about the emerging new technology, biofuels is something that you've educated me on, but more importantly, I'm seeing now even in Albany, they're beginning to focus on legislation to make it more available. Tell us again, if you can, just again, what that process looks like.
Sure. Well, I mean, really, in the very limited amount of time we have, not to go through a chemistry, a dissertation, but biofuels is derived from vegetable oils, domestically produced, primarily from soybean oil is what is used in the heating. It's been the most stable. It's got the lowest pour point, meaning that it keeps its qualities down to lower temperatures, which is critical in winter demand when it comes from soy. And there's two different technologies. One that's most commonly referred to as biofuel. Another one that's referred to as renewable diesel, which is a further refined process, which is much more stable in colder temperatures. It has different lubricity properties, so that is part of why there's more research being done to blend it with traditional petroleum-based fuels. But if and when it's adapted, and for example, at Robison, 20% of all of the heating fuel that it delivers is made from biofuels. So it's fully renewable. It has a significantly lower amount of carbon emissions, and the process, the farming process, also has a carbon sequestration process to it that also has a net positive impact on the environment. As we integrate these fuels and do research to increase these blends, now it's 20% is what most of the manufacturers endorse, but the industry is working towards a 50% blend and ultimately be able to deliver to homeowners a full 100% combination of renewable diesel and bio. And what's most important about this is it doesn't cost the consumer any money to make the change. It's basically a drop-in fuel. I mean, there's hundreds of dollars worth of adjustments that might need to be made on some older equipment rather than the tens of thousands of dollars of investment that people are making in their homes.
And I think one of the things that the coalition will continue to talk about is this new emerging technology, and again, making it as user-friendly for customers as possible. Michael Murphy, Murphy Brothers Construction, obviously you're coming at this at a different angle. You all are going to be confronted with new challenges as we move into this new renewable infrastructure. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing, what some of the things that you hope the coalition will address, but more importantly, what, as wearing your other hat, being the chair of the Mamaroneck Chamber of Commerce, what you're hearing from local governments about all these changes.
Well, John, first of all, before I answer your question, I'd like to say thank you to the Business Council of Westchester for opening it up to the idea that we got together. I've known Dan Singer and Ron Kamen for a long time. Murphy Brothers has worked with Ron and his company. He's our clean energy consultant on several of our projects. Dan, I know that the Robison story, the Singer family, they're very authentic in the clean energy space. So we're delighted to be here, and thank you again for opening up to us. So Murphy Brothers, at being a construction company in Westchester County here, so we love the words that begin with RE, like redevelopment, repurposing, renovation, and remodeling. We want to see the construction continue in Westchester County, both on the residential and the commercial side. We also see that there are three things that are really disruptors in our industry that a lot of people don't pay attention to, and that's AI design, that's automated construction, where you see like panelized building this is going to be great in the future. And then it's also climate change. Climate change is a big disruptor in our industry, not only in how we are building, but what we can build. And so we're vitally concerned about, being a part of the voice as to the change in Westchester County and beyond. And I think that what we're doing here is we're developing something that is common sense, that no matter if you live in the city of White Plains or you live in the village of Mamaroneck, that you can, it's something that you can take within your village, wherever you live, and your people be happy with it. The business is also, as you mentioned, I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Mamaroneck. People, they aren't as concerned as they should be. And this is interesting because they have so many things on their plate. Mamaroneck is famous for their flooding problems, right? But they should be concerned about climate change. This is what we're doing here at the Business Council of Westchester, putting it together to be able to go to them and say, hey, listen to what we have here.
Well, again, I think there is so much that people are going to have to not only learn, but also as we talk to local governments, if we can't get solar farm applications through and battery storage farm applications through, we're not going to be able to meet the needs of where we need to be as a state. When we come back from our break, I want to talk a little bit about the working groups that you've put together, Ron, for the coalition, and then also about our Clean Energy Conference that will be on Monday, March 24th. This is Advocacy and Politics Unplugged, part of the BCW Podcast Network, and we'll be right back. Con Edison customers, are you looking for an efficient way to heat and cool your home? Consider geothermal heat pumps. These innovative systems turn energy from the ground around your home into cooled or heated air for climate control, providing you significant energy savings and year-round comfort. Con Edison is dedicated to sustainability and helping customers save. That's why they offer incentives for installing geothermal heat pumps. Eligible homeowners could receive rebates that significantly lower their upfront cost. By choosing geothermal, homeowners won't just save money, they'll also reduce their carbon footprint and contribute to a cleaner environment. To learn more about geothermal heat pumps and available incentives, visit coned.com/geothermal. It's a smart choice for both homes and the planet. We're back at Advocacy and Politics Unplugged, part of the BCW Podcast Network, and we're grateful to be sponsored by Con Edison. Our guests this afternoon are Ron Kamen, who is the founder and principal of EarthKind Energy and also the director of the Business Council of Westchester's Clean Energy Action Coalition, Dan Singer of Robison, and Michael Murphy from Murphy Brothers Construction. We've talked a little bit about how this coalition came together. And I should also say to our listeners, this coalition is open to BCW members who are engaged in this process of bringing new renewable energy to the county and to the region and to the state. We have over 85 members so far, which is very exciting. I know that you have, Ron, broken them up into different working groups. Talk to us a little bit about those groups.
Yeah, there's 9 different groups to split up the work because there's a tremendous amount of effort that needs to go into this, right? So if you take a look at, okay, let's start with just basic, what is the data out there? How much energy are we using for electricity, every community? How much energy are we using for heating and cooling? How much energy are we using for transportation? Where is that energy coming from? Where do we want to come from? So that was one of the first pieces that we're working on, is to gather that data, because people have no idea where their energy is coming from, how much of it is, what the resources are. And one of the things looking forward is, how do we be resilient when we have the increased amount of climate change disrupting our communities with floods and hurricanes and superstorms? So part of this now is taking a look at all the different technologies, looking at the data. In addition, we have a focus on a local law, a model local law, to bring out to the community, so that instead of everyone having, you got this community, we got 45 different communities that have their own rules in Westchester. Instead of having every community have a little different piece that then takes more time, more effort, et cetera, we want to have a model that everyone can adopt that would then streamline the adoption of clean energy initiatives for existing structures, for new structures, for retrofits. So we have a focus on looking at those technologies. We're putting together case studies of examples of folks that have done things. For instance, at the conference, we're planning to have a public situation with a public housing organization. We're going to have some private companies that are showcasing their work, what they have done, how they put it together, the financing, the incentives, et cetera. So leadership, pointing to people who've actually done this work that says, hey, we can all do this. And that's across the board. We have a group that's working specifically on workforce. What are the workforce needs that we have to be able to achieve these goals? And they're substantial, right? It's everything from entry level through mid-level through high-end engineering and design. So we have a group that's focusing specifically on workforce. And then one of the key things is the incentives, right? What are the incentives out there? What are the financing opportunities? How do we make this profitable so that people don't feel all that pain? One of the things we're most excited about with biofuels is that 70% of California's diesel transportation is now done with renewable diesel. There is no reason why we can't do the same thing here in Westchester and New York, to basically drop in a renewable diesel, reduce our carbon emission, reduce our emission, and not let the full electrification with clean energy be the enemy of the good of just getting something done today rather than waiting 20 or 30 years to move forward. So there's a whole host of working groups. We'd love to have more folks involved. We've got everyone from construction companies and developers through all the clean energy industry, providers, et cetera. And it's solar and battery storage, it's biofuels, it's construction, both existing and new, and it's also bringing electricity in from upstate New York and Canada, that clean solar and wind, bringing it down through transmission. So there's a whole comprehensive approach that we're putting together, and we'll be working through that approach at the conference. We'll be sharing those case studies, we'll be sharing those examples, we'll be sharing the vision of where we want to go, and then we'll be looking to involve whole communities in this process.
So if I can jump in here
Sure,
for a
Mike.
minute, you had mentioned that there's 85 members within the group now, right? Well, there's over how many members of the Business Council Westchester?
Over 1,100.
1,100, which and many members within some of those companies, right? So there's an opportunity there to even grow that 85 larger. So if anybody's listening out there, and I'm sure that they are, to this podcast here, and they want to know more about this, John, how would they find out how to get involved in the Clean Energy Coalition itself?
Well, again, and also if you would like to register for the BCW Energy Conference, go to our website, which is www.thebcw.org, and go to our events tab on the website, and you'll get all the information about that, as well as the Clean Energy Action Coalition. So the working groups have been working. They've been set up. What I think is so refreshing is that you have folks, as I've said a few times already in this episode, on the front lines. They're not competitors. They all have special expertise in the areas of renewables that they're working in. Talk to us, Dan, a little bit about, we've talked about biofuels, but some of the other technology areas that you hope that this group will work on.
Well, as you pointed out too, these breakout groups are not just groups of people that just to kind of put their names or their company's names on it. I've been tremendously impressed with how much everybody's rolled up their sleeves and actually gotten involved to collaborate with one another. People that have been in this space that had not been collaborating with one another until this forum was created for them. So we really are getting at solutions. At the end of the day, we're looking to make sure that we are, turning over every rock. So whether or not, if we are talking about, heat pumps as an example, or geothermal, whether or not we are educating people properly on how to do it, whether or not we got the workforce training, making sure that we have the labor to do these things, whether or not people are aware of the various incentives in order to get these things done, and a vehicle to provide the feedback so that the incentive programs can be tailored to something that would be digestible and usable for for people that are getting this work this work done.
I think the buzzword that we're hearing in Albany, that we're hearing in Washington, D.C., and we'll touch about what's happening in Washington in a few minutes, and also on the local level, is affordability. Affordability across the board. But we also have to talk about cost, the cost of doing business, the cost of being able to take all this new technology and get the information out to our listeners. Michael, you're out in every community for Murphy Brothers Construction. When you talk to your clients and customers, what are their biggest concerns as they focus on and think about the future and how that's going to look in terms of making sure that we have a reliable grid?
Well, John, their first concern is their project gets built right, which is why they came to Murphy Brothers Contracting in the first person.
No doubt.
Put my little plug in there for that. But at the same time, they're concerned about their footprint on this planet. So because our clients are becoming younger, and they do have that concern for it. So we are finding that to be one of their large concerns. So, but again, the information that we're putting together with the Clean Energy Action Coalition, I believe this is going to be a great positive effect on the future of Westchester County, both the construction and other things.
As we talk about our conference, which again will be on March 24th at the Crotonville Conference Center in Austin, New York, we're very excited the fact that Doreen Harris, who's the president and CEO of NYSERDA, will be the keynote speaker. Our county executive will do welcoming remarks. We have also invited opportunities to speak to some other leaders in the energy sector. And as Ron has already talked about, some of the presentations that will be given during the conference. Talk to us about the role of NYSERDA. I mean, obviously, they are really going to play such a pivotal role in not only funneling out money and resources, but really shaping this new energy program.
Yeah, so NYSERDA, for folks that don't know, is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And they're the ones that are tasked with collecting all those system benefit charges that we all pay a little bit extra on our electric and gas bills, and then distributing those in a way that helps incentivize and makes a transition to these clean energy technologies. So in addition to providing those incentives, which are substantial, NYSERDA also helps folks like us develop models. So they have a model out there for communities dealing with energy storage and how to site larger energy storage facilities. What are the kind of fire concerns you should have? What are the safety things you should build in? And how do you look at it in a way that makes sense? So NYSERDA is a key partner. They're definitely a key component of this. They're also helping to fund some of the workforce development pieces of this, some of the technology pieces of this. So there's a great partnership there with NYSERDA as well.
And as I said, state government is moving as aggressively as they can to meet the dates of the CLCPA, as well as hopefully really begin to embrace and engage this new emerging technology. And one of the things that we're going to challenge our elected officials to do, especially those who really have been pushing for the renewable energy to be built, is we're going to need their assistance to go into their local communities, to go attend community planning boards and really speak out about why we need municipalities not to block these changes from happening. And that will be one of the topics that we will also bring up on our conference in March 24th. And again, for those of you who are listening, you do not have to be a BCW member to attend the conference. You can go to our website, www.thebcw.org, and to our events tab, and you'll get all the information about the conference, which will start at 8:30 with a continental breakfast and go till around 12:30. So again, it's going to be a program that is going to be very important as we continue to move forward in the areas that we've discussed. Let's shift a little bit to the politics, because we are 3 weeks into the new administration in Washington. We've already seen some edicts that have come out of the White House. How is this going to affect the work that needs to get done in New York? What are some of the concerns that you all have? And what are some of the things that you hope you'll see come out of Washington and Albany as we move forward? Dan, I'll turn it to you first.
Oh, well, thanks for that
Sure.
easy question. I think all it does, what the current climate is doing, is making it making the reality that we were dealing with before even that much more in the forefront, which means there is no one solution to this problem. Right? We need to be prepared to tack in a multitude of different directions while still progressing forward. So there obviously is going to be a lot of winds blowing back and forth between some of the priorities that states like New York are putting on that might be contradictory to some of the priorities that we get out of the administration. But it doesn't change the reality that people here in Westchester care about the environment, care about our impact, want to make sure that we're doing it in a thoughtful way. And there is no one size fit all. And at the end of the day, if everybody comes to the table with a sincere interest at trying to solve the problem rather than just pushing their own personal political agenda, then we're going to get to the right solutions.
Ron?
So the big concern is that the federal administration takes a sledgehammer to all the clean energy programs. And the incentives that are out there from the federal government right now are substantial. They make a project, right? So if you're looking at a solar or a geothermal project, nearly 2/3 of the cost gets covered from federal tax credits or accelerated depreciation. If that gets cut, that's a big 2/3 gap in the funding that you're looking at when you're putting together a project. So that kind of disruption would be really devastating, especially to the hundreds of billions of dollars worth of investments that have been made over the last 4 years in clean energy manufacturing in the country. Hopefully, what the administration, some people have said, is that they're going to take a scalpel to what they want to slice and dice and not a sledgehammer. And that's really important because if you take a look at where the clean energy manufacturing investments were in this country, most of them, 80-some-odd%, actually went to red districts as opposed to the blue types of folks. So hopefully there's enough balance there that they don't take a sledgehammer and everything, which would be really pretty devastating. I think that one of the things that's going to happen, though, too, is that there's going to be a shift to much more local, what happens locally. And if you take a look at a development in Westchester, in particular, or anywhere in New York State, the upfront cost of having to get your approvals from the local municipality through the state, through all the different processes, is very time-consuming and costly. And if we could take that piece out of it and accelerate, just like they did in New Rochelle with their development, where they have now a form-based code, where if you go into New Rochelle, because they did all the upfront groundwork, you can get a building permit in 60 or 90 days that normally in any other community would take you years and maybe not even get at the end of the day. If we can get that type of forward thinking where we have people saying, yeah, you know what, we want solar on all the roofs, we want solar on all the parking lots, we want solar and battery storage in it everywhere so that everyone has some resiliency, so that when a grid goes down, they still got power and they can supply power to their senior citizens and everybody else. We can have that forward thinking, we can have that plan in place, we can start accelerating and streamlining the process to get this stuff going. We can achieve these goals. And to just give you one example worldwide, which I was blown away about when I took a look at it, nuclear power is now coming back into vogue, right? So it takes a decade or more to build a nuclear power plant, right? And the last time we tried it in New York State, it bankrupted the Long Island Lighting Company with massive cost overruns, and it took a long process. So when you take a look at nuclear around the world, I was really surprised to see that there's only about 440 nuclear plants operating in the world. That's less than 400 gigawatts. Last year alone, worldwide, solar installed 600 gigawatts, 600,000 megawatts in 1 year. That's the type of accelerated adoption of technology that we need to hit for, to look for, to make that happen here and everywhere.
Well, and again, the acceleration of getting those permits and getting people to, as we've said, get on board and understand the process. And Michael, you've seen this working in communities throughout the county. That's not an easy thing to do at all the times. But again, part of the work that hopefully this coalition will do will be giving communities a roadmap. I don't think any of us around this table are saying, do it our way. We're saying, here's some options. Here's the research and the data and the science, best practices that have worked in these areas for you to review and hopefully adopt. But again, we're going to have to make that hard sell.
Common sense. That's what we're offering.
Well, common sense sometimes in politics definitely don't go hand in
Common
hand.
sense is very uncommon.
The other thing, Mike, Ron, you raised it, which I think is going to be interesting to see as this new administration moves forward in D.C. As you said, a lot of these clean energy projects are already started, and they're in Republican districts. So as much as we've seen and heard about the Republican Party now kowtowing to the president, it's going to be interesting if all of a sudden some of these members hear from their constituents and their businesses that, wait a second, we're halfway through. What do you mean you're pulling the plug? And look how many jobs we've created, and look at the revenue that we're going to be able to bring in. So it will be interesting to see how they walk that tightrope.
Yeah, in
moving
addition,
forward.
what you have is, you have investment in U.S. infrastructure, right, as opposed to importing Chinese or other products into the country. And that's what the Inflation Reduction Act was set up to do, is to help incentivize U.S. manufacturing. That's what is happening right now. Why would we want to lose that?
Yep.
Right?
Well, and again, I think the thing that we will have to continue to talk about is the reliability that we want to supply, the cost that we want to hopefully keep down, and the fact that we will be creating jobs, and jobs that are sustainable long term, and that will change lives for people in Westchester, the region, and the state. Our guests this afternoon have been Ron Kamen, who's the founder and principal of EarthKind Energy and the director of the BCW's Clean Energy Action Coalition, Dan Singer of Robison, Michael Murphy, the head of business development from Murphy Brothers Construction. Again, these three were the founders, if you will, of the Clean Energy Action Coalition. We are very excited at the BCW to continue to see the work that you guys are doing almost on a daily basis now to help bring this agenda to the forefront. And we hope everyone will be able to attend our Clean Energy Action Coalition's Clean Energy Conference on Monday, March 24th. Again, go to our website, www.thebcw.org, to get more information about the conference. This is John Ravitz, the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for the Business Council of Westchester. You've been listening to Advocacy and Politics Unplugged, part of the BCW Podcast Network, and we are very grateful that Con Edison is a sponsor now of this podcast. We'll see you next month. Be sure to check out the BCW Podcast Network's expansive lineup of shows: Leadership Unleashed, What's Trending, the Member Spotlight, WIN, the Innovation Roundtable, and Advocacy and Politics Unplugged. Stay tuned to our next episode of Advocacy and Politics Unplugged, premiering next month. The Business Council of Westchester is the county's largest business membership organization focusing on economic development and advocacy. With over 1,100 members, it is our mission to work for the profitability of our members and prosperity for the Westchester community. To learn more about the Business Council of Westchester, please go to www.thebcw.org.